ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
साचे नाम की तिल वडियाई
सारणहारा
हर आपे ठाकुर हर आपे सेवक जी क्या नानक चंद प्रचारा
गढ़ कर अंतर सब रत्न जी हर एक को प्रभु समाना
एक दाते एक बेकारी जी सब तेरे जोश बिलाना
तू आपे दाता आपे भूखा जी हम तो तुम्हें खबर ना जाना
तू पार हम बेअंत जी तेरे त्यागण आप दुखाना
जो सेवै तुझी जन नानक ते कुर्बाना
हर त्यावे तुझी से जन्म जुग में सुखवासी
से मुक्त पे दिन हाथ आया जी टूटी जम की फांसी
जिन हर ने बो त्याया जी तिन का वो सब प्रवासी
जिन सेव्या मेरा हर जी ते हर का विश्वासी
से तन जिन हर त्याया जी जन नानक दिन बचासी
तेरी भगत भंडार जी करे बेअंता
तेरे भगत सहा तुझी हर अनेक अनंता
तेरी अनक करे हर पूजा जी आपे जपे बेअंता
तेरी अनेक करे वो सुरत साक्षी जीत कर क्रिया कट करंता
भगत से भगत भले जन नानक जी जो पावे मेरे हर भगवता
तू आद परंपर करता जी जो तू जेवत कब ना कोई
तू जो के को सदा तू देखो जी तू नेचल करता सोए
तू आपे पावे सोए बनते जी तू आपे करे सोए
आपे शिव सब पाई जी तू आपे शिव सब कोई
जन नानक गुण गावे कब के जी जो सबके का जानोए
आशा माता चोता तू कर प्रचार बैंडा साई
जो तू पावे
सोई पिछली जो तू वेद सोई तू पाई रहो
सब तेरी तू सबने दया जिसने कृपा करे दिन नाम रतन पाया
भगवाता मानो तू आया तू आप छोड़िया आप मिलाया
दरिया सब तुझी माय तुझमें जूझा कोई नाय
जी जान सब तेरा देव जो मिल विषया से जोगी में
जिसने तू जाना है सो जन जाने हर गन सही आप बखाने
जे हर से गया तू सुख पाया सहजे ही हर नाम समाया
आपे करता तेरा किया सब होए तुझमें पूछा अब न कोई
कर कर देखे जाने सोए जहान को रूप प्रकट होए
आशा महला पहला नित सर्वरे पहले निवासा पानी पावन ने किया
पंकज मोह भाग नहीं चले हम देखा तै डूबिया ले
मन एक न चेतस मूल मना हर से तेरे गुण गया रहा
नाम जल्दी सती नहीं पड़िया मूर्ख मुक्ता जन्म गया
प्रणवत नानक दिन की सन्ना चंदू नाही बिसरिया आशा महला पंचमा पई परावत मानक ते हरिया गोविंद
ये तेरी बढ़िया
अवर काज तेरे किते न काम
साथ संगत पद केवल नाम
सरंजाम लाग पहुंचत नरन के
धर्म का जात प्रमाया कह रहा हूँ
जप तप संजम धर्म ना तुमाया
सेवा साथ न जान्या हराया
नानक हम नीच कर्मा सर्वरे की रागो शर्मा एक ओंकार सतगुर प्रसाद कबयो बाज बेनती जो भय हमरी करो हाथ दे रक्षा
पूर्ण होई चित्ती इच्छा
अच्छा जन्मन रहे हमारा
अपना जान करो तुम्हारा
हमरे दुष्ट वे तुम गावो
आप हाथे मोए जाओ
सुखी बसे मोरो परिवार
सेवक सिर सुबह करतारा
रक्षा निज करते करिए
सब पैरन को आज मिलिए
पूरन होए हमारी आशा
और भजन की रहे प्यासा
मैं छाड़ को यवन न त्याऊं
जो कर जाऊं सो तुम के पाओ
सेवक सिख हमारे तारी है
चुन चुन सत्र हमारे मारिया
आप हाथे मुझे उबरिए
परंकार का त्रास मरिया
जो सदा हमारे अच्छा
सियस जो करे और रक्षा
राखे हो राखे हारे
सारे संत सहाय प्यारे
दीन बंधु स्तन के हंता
मोह पुरी जुटन दस कंता
पाए पर माँ बकरा
काल पाई सिर जुगत तरा
पाए कर प्रश्न कासा
सकल काल का किया तमाशा
जवन का जोगी सिद्धियो
वेद राज ब्रह्मा ज्योतियो
जवन का सब लोग सवारा
नमस्कार है ताई हमारा
जवन का सब जगत बनायो
देव दैत्य क्षण उठायो
आद अंत एक अवतारा
सोई गुरु समझो हमारा
नमस्कार किसी को हमारी
सगल विराजे आप सवारी
सिरकन को सिरकन सुखदियो
सकल को पर मोहब्बत कियो
कटकट पेट के अंदर की जानत
भले बड़े की पीर पहचान
जीती बार श्री भगवती जी की पातशाही 10वीं। प्रथम भगवती सिमर के गुरु नानक लेते आए, फिर अंगद गुरते अमरदास रामदास से हुए सहाय। अर्जन हर गोबिंदु सिमरो श्री हर राय, श्री हर कृष्ण आइए जिस डिठे सत तुक जाए। गुरु तेग बहादुर सिमरिए करनौ निधि आवे नाय, सब थाई होए सहाय। 10वें पातशाह श्री गुरु गोबिंद सिंह साहिब जी सब थाई होए सहाय। 10वां पातशाहिया दी जोत श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी के पाठ दीदार का ध्यान करके बोलो जी पंजा प्यारिया चौहा साहिब जादिया चालियां मुक्तियां हठियां जपियां तपियां जिन्ना नाम जपिया वर्ण जपिया देख चलाई देख बाही देख के अंडित कीता तिना प्यारिया सचियारिया दी कमाई का ध्यान करके बोलो जी जिन्ना सिंगा सिंगनिया ने धर्म हेत सीस दिते बंद बंद कटाए खोपड़ियां लुहाइयां चढ़खड़ियां दे चढ़े आर्या नाल जराए गए गुरुद्वारिया की सेवा लई कुर्बानियां कीतियां धर्म नहीं हारिया सिੱਖੀ केसा स्वासन नाल दिवाई तिन्हां दी कमाई का ध्यान करके खालसा जी बोलो जी पंजा तख्ता सरबत गुरुद्वारिया का ध्यान करके बोलो जी में सरबत खालसा जी की अरदास है जी सरबत खालसा जी को वाहेगुरु 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 चित आवे चित आवन का सदका सरब सुख होवे जहाँ जहाँ खालसा जी साहेब तहाँ तहाँ रचिया रियायत देख देख फतेह बिरद की पैज पंथ की जीत श्री साहिब जी सहाय खालसा जी के बोल वाले बोलो जी सिखा नु सिखी दान केस दान रहत दान विवेक दान भरोसा दान विसाह दान दाना सिर दान नाम दान श्री अमृतसर जी के दर्शन इश्नान चौंकियां चंडे होंगे जुगो जुगर डर धर्म का जयकार बोलो जी सिखा दा मन नीवा मत उच्ची मत पत्ता रखा आप वाहिगुरु हे अकाल पुरख अपने पंथे सदा सहाय दातार जियो श्री ननकाना साहिब के और गुरुद्वारे गुरदामा दे जिन्हां तो पंथ में विछोड़िया गया है खुले दर्शन दीदार ते सेवा संभाल का दान खालसा जी ने बख्शो हे निमानिया दे मान नितानिया दे दान न्योटिया दियो सच्चे पिता वाहिगुरु आप जी दे हुजूर कैंप चढ़दी कला के बच्चे दे सेवा ਅਤੇ ਸੇਵਾਦਾਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਜੀ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਮਿਹਰ ਭਰਿਆ ਹੱਥ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਜੀ ਨਾਮ ਜਪਣ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ ਅਤੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਦੀ ਦਾਤ ਦੇ ਬਾਲ ਬਖਸ਼ੋ ਜੀ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਹਜ਼ੂਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਪਾਠ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਅਤੇ ਸੋਧ ਔਰ ਰਹਿਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਆਗੇ ਤੋਂ ਸਪੁਸ਼ਟ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਅਤੇ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਦਾ ਬਾਲ ਬਖਸ਼ਣਾ ਜੀ ਅੱਖਰ ਵਾਦਾ ਕਾਟਾ ਭੁੱਲ ਚੁੱਕ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨੀ सरबत का विजास करनी से प्यारे मेरे जिन्ना मिलया तेरा नाम छते आवे नाम नाम चढ़ती कला तेरे बाने सरबत का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह
सतगुरु सच्चे पातशाह धन धन श्री गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब जी महाराज जी की पवित्र हजूरी सच बैठी गुरु रूप गुरु प्यारी साध संगत जी गज के फतेह बुलाओ वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा ਦੀ ਅਪਾਰ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼, ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਅਪਾਰ ਪਿਆਰ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ, ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਗੋਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ, ਜੋ 10 ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਨਾਜ਼ਰ ਸਰੂਪ ਹਨ। ਬਾਣੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਹੈ ਬਾਣੀ, ਵਿੱਚ ਬਾਣੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਸਾਰੇ। ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਕਹੈ ਸੇਵਕ ਜਨ ਮਾਨੈ, ਪ੍ਰਤੱਖ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਿਸਤਾਰੈ। ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਹੋਈ ਆ, ਆਪਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ ਹੈ, ਰਾਸਾ ਦਾ ਪਾਠ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ, ਜੋ ਹਰ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਦਾ ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਹੈ ਸ਼ਾਮੀ। ਸਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੈ ਸ਼ਾਮੀ ਰਾਸਾ ਦਾ ਪਾਠ? ਕੌਣ ਕਰਦਾ? ਰੇਜ਼ ਯੋਰ ਹੈਂਡ ਇਫ ਯੂ ਡੂ ਰਾਸਾ or listen to it in the evening. Okay, quite a few. Okay, those of you do nitnem in the morning. How many of you do Japji Sahib in the morning? Oh, nice. Okay, how many of you listen to Japji Sahib if you can do it? Wonderful, excellent. Okay, and that's perfect. If you can listen to Japji Sahib, even that Learn Shuddh Gurbani app I said yesterday, download it, listen, there's nitnem on it. Listen to Bhagat Ji's awaaz. Their awaaz has power and vibration in it. That will affect you. So ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਹੈ ਬਹੁਤ। ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ, and especially for parents by the way, great tip, just play the nitnem for your kids while they're sleeping. It will go into their body. In fact, Sant Baba Nand Singh Ji used to say, if you want a child to be a Gurmukh their whole life, make them listen to Sukhmani Sahib in the first year of life. If you can have it, even now, start Sukhmani Sahib Shunao, Roz Shunao, just put it on, even if you can't do it. This will go into their system, it will change their being. Slowly they don't want to read it themselves. They'll be pulled towards the spirit of Bani. So amazing tips we have. We've been very blessed in the last couple of days to have this Sangat. I have one thought which came to me this morning, because Kaur Singh read a Shabad Gurupure Charni Laya after Asadivar, and it was a Shabad that came to me when I did Gurcharni Lagni Di Rasam, which is a ceremony you do when you want to start Guru Granth Sahib's part, from first to the last 14 or 30 angs. So the ceremony is called what? Gurcharni Lagna. What's it called? Gurcharni Lagna. So I did that when I was 8 years old. How old was I? 8, right? How tall was I? Who's 8 years old here? Anyone 8? There you go. Okay, can you stand up? I think I was that tall. Okay, there you go. So I was that tall when I got my first Gurcharni Lagna experience. Thank you. Have a seat. So, is there anyone who wants to start reading Guru Granth Sahib Ji for first ang and then read it maybe 1 ang a day and then finish it in like 4 years? Anyone who would like to do that? Who would like to read Guru Granth Sahib Ji from the beginning to the end? That's it? Only like 15 people? What about the rest of you? You don't want to read Guru Granth Sahib Ji, your Guru? It would be so lovely. By the time you're done high school, you would have read novels, right? Those thick novels. So, those of you who'd like to, I'd like to offer you that tomorrow we can do your Charni Lagna Ardas. We can say, aisa je bachche, they want to start reading Guru Granth Sahib. Please bless them as they start that journey. And then we'll read Panch Poniya after the Ardas, after Hukumnama, and then your Gurcharni Lagna ceremony is done. Just like the Starbandi ceremony for boys and girls, you can also have Gurcharni Lagna ceremony, which is a common ceremony amongst Gursikhs. If you'd like to do that tomorrow, please give me your names after the Diwan, before you go to for dinner, and then I'll make a note and we'll do your Ardas, and then we'll do your Gurcharni Lagna. It just takes us 5 minutes, okay? Then you can read Guru Granth Sahib on your own time. Whether you use the app or you use transliteration if you like. If you can read Gurmukhi, even better. Or you have Guru Granth Sahib at home or Senchi, you can do like that too. But I'd love for you, before some of you go to university, to have read your Guru and know the message. Okay. Without going into too much detail on that aspect, I'm going to turn over the mic to, like yesterday we had Ravi Bhalla, right? He spoke about his experience with his mayorship and how he interposes his Gursikhi into his work. Today we have a couple of speakers. Our first speaker is Benji Sapreet Kaur ji. She is a wonderful, humble soul, very inspirational female role model in Gursikhi, who has led the Sikh coalition, which Amar Palla and them started, and that's Sartaj Singh's dad. My super fan. His dad started it, right? So, and I remember the days when he would do all that work, and I was like enamored by the work he does. He left his lawyer work, and he gave so much time to Sikh Coalition, getting like very small amount of pay to work for Sikhi. I said, Amar, how are you doing this? Like, I don't know if I could do that. He says, Virji, Sikhis, good Sikhs have given so much to Sikhi, I'm giving nothing. They've sacrificed so much for Sikhi in the past, I'm just giving a little bit. So this is the admiration of these good Sikhs. And Sapreet Kaur is wonderful. She's worked for the Sikh Coalition for over 8 years as the executive director, led the Sikh Coalition. We in Canada are envious. You know, note that, Brampton people, okay? We're envious of Sikh Coalition, but we don't have Sikh Coalition in Canada. And we struggle to do our own work there. And so we have the World Sikh Organization doing stuff. But being a charitable or being a lobby organization here is wonderful to see the work they do. I get the emails all the time. And Sapreet Kaur, later on, she was also a speaker at the inauguration, the second inauguration of US President Obama. Wow, that's amazing. I still have to watch that video. She currently works as the Global Affairs what is it? Strategy director. I got it written, but she has a big title at the Girl Scouts. She's doing some amazing work. I'd like to call her on for to share her experience and how she intersperses her Sikhi work in the organization. You know, having these Gursikhs amongst us is a blessing, and she's always been very humble all these years at camp. It would be wonderful to hear from her. Okay, so for a few minutes, thank you. Please welcome her with the Bole Sunihal.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. It's great to be here with all of you for another year of CCK. Many of you have seen me over the years as you've grown up, mostly with little Khalsa. Originally, as my son Saravar Singh is here, and he's 9, and he started coming when he was 2. I started coming to Camp Chardi when I was 9 years old. That was the first time I came to camp. And you think of them as parents, of course, but we were all campers together when we were younger. And camp was farther upstate, more in the wilderness, and it was 2 weeks long. And so it had a great influence on me growing up, as I'm sure it's having on you. And it's interesting, when I reflect back on my time at CCK, you know, I was not the camper who was leading Ardas, who was grabbing the microphone, who had to be in a Shan Sahib. That wasn't my personality at that age, and arguably potentially not my personality now. And the many lessons that I learned at CCK is that you find your own voice and you find your own place in Sangat and as a Sikh in service to humanity. And that means lots of different things, and there are different ways we know, as we've learned from the Sakis of our Guru, to lead. There are ways to lead with the microphone in hand and at the front, and there are ways to lead from within that equally advance the agenda of humanity and the agenda of the Panth. Of the lessons that I learned at camp, some of them were really ingrained in me. So of course, and I know Ravi mentioned this yesterday, humility. Having humility in what you do, how you carry yourself, what you say. You know, I often think of that now as making sure that as you breathe in the oxygen, you leave enough oxygen for others to breathe and find their place as well. I also learned a lot about purpose, life purpose, that was often talked about at camp in lots of different ways. That it's not enough, we don't believe as Sikhs that it's enough to take up space in this earth and breathe in the air and take up space and only care about our own personal well-being. That's not enough to live a Sikhi-inspired life. That you have to have some higher purpose that you're serving, and that purpose is not only fulfilled by choosing a nonprofit or a seva-oriented career, as I have in recent years. That you're not waiting for some big moment to give yourself, some big moment where you become filthy rich and then you're going to donate lots of money, some big moment where you retire and you're old and now you're going to do seva, or that you're going to eventually one day do something great. What we believe, what I was taught at camp and through my parents, is that as Sikhs, it's our duty to strive to do those good deeds and to live in service of the greater of humanity, which is our way of connecting with the divine, one of the ways of connecting with the divine every day. And And what does that look like? That looks like the everyday choices you make, right? That are you doing your this month now? I mean, even as kids, how many of you get allowances from your parents? Do kids get allowances? No, because you get everything you need. You don't need an allowance. But if you do get money, let's say you get a suggin on your birthday, or you get a suggin for something special, is it just for you? Or is there some portion of that that you're supposed to give to a cause that matters to you? If you have time, are you going to do seva? Is seva something you do once, or is it part of your daily practice in life? Is the work that you choose to do in your life, even professionally as you get older, does it give you purpose? And if it gives you purpose in one area, but it doesn't help give your whole life purpose, how do you spend your other time in a way that's really worthy? And I think those are the choices that we make every day, and they start when you're young. And for me, I felt I was a very unlikely leader of a Sikh Panthik organization. Not because I didn't have the capacity, not because I didn't have the intelligence or the drive or the determination, but because the role models that I had met in my life on a regular basis as leaders in the community more often than not, did not share a lot in common with me, right? There were very few women that I saw in leadership positions, either because they didn't seek them or because the Sangat wouldn't give them the oxygen to breathe and take up that mantle. There were very few younger people. I'm youngish now, I guess, not as young as I used to be, but younger people taking up leadership positions, and what would that mean? And I also had this misconception that I had to be so far along in my own spiritual journey and undoubtedly have taken Amrit in order to be able to contribute in that way, not as Amrit as a destination, but as a milestone on the journey. And what I've learned is that, Waheguru works through all of us to create the more just and loving world that we wish to live in, that we strive for, and that there's a role for each one of us to play at different times. And I often think that the success that I had leading the Sikh Coalition for those 8.5 years of really transformational change for the Panth in the US were because it was a different type of leadership. It was a leadership that we as a team really tried to ground in Sikh ideals, to push the collective voice forward, not just of the Sikh Panth, but of all people in Guruji's vision around equality. I also want to share with you that I had no vision for a career in nonprofit work. I always thought that I would stay in the private sector, and someday when I was older and closer to retirement and money didn't matter as much, I would decide to do something with my time that paid less and was worthy. And I actually found right around the time that I was about 30 that changed pretty dramatically. I was actually recruited out of the private sector to work for Teach for America. Do people know what Teach for America is? So it's an organization that takes kids who have just finished university, college, and they agree to teach in low-income schools for 2 years to make a difference at the grassroots levels in communities, and then they go on to do other things. And I was brought in to lead a strategy group at the headquarters at a time of doubling their impact. And I didn't think that at that age I would focus on that, and I wasn't sure what it would mean for me in terms of, how I was going to make a living, what our society perceives as valuable, right, with status. But I made the change, and I realized that it's really an honor and a blessing to be able to have your professional work be part of your life's purpose. And all throughout, I have found that being a Sikh and being a Sikh woman has actually been an asset and not at all a barrier to any kind of achievement. And so I know for most of you, you're young and still sort of figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Well, we're lucky. As Sikhs, we believe that life is a journey and the journey is the destination. And that applies to your spiritual growth over time as well as your personal growth over time. And so I would say to you, think about the core lessons that you learn here at camp and how they translate in the way you live your life every single day. Do you try new things? as we've heard from other speakers? Do you have courage when it feels most difficult? When there's a role for you to play, to step up and assume some piece of leadership or some decision making that would make a difference, to use your voice, do you do it? When something's happening that you don't think is right, do you stand up and stand up for what's right? And if you make those everyday decisions, when you look at years and years of your life, you'll feel more satisfied about the path that you're on and more ambitious about what you want to do next, because you've made those everyday decisions. You know, I will have to say, when I look at people, Sikhs who I really admire and the way that they're living their lives, they're not waiting for some moment to start to do something. They're living that Sikh way of life as they can every day and growing on it. And I find that really inspiring. And for me, camp played a pretty significant role in me taking all of the lessons that we learned and bringing them together. The last thought I wanted to share with you is about Sangat. And I have to say, camp gave me a Sikh Sangat that I hadn't had until then. You know, there were far fewer Sikhs in the US at the time that I was your age, and by and large, the other Sikh kids I saw were the children of my parents' friends. That's who I saw regularly. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have social media to try to connect independently. And for me, the first year I came to camp was the first time I met Sikhs who were not connected to my family so closely, and those are still to this day some of the most treasured friendships and relationships in my life. And those are the people who have kept me sort of straight and been a sounding board for me. And so I think that the relationship, of course, that you're building in your conversation with Waheguru while you're here at camp is of the utmost value. I would say of equal value is the value of Sangat that you build here, and the friendships that you make that will outlast the weeks that you spend here every single summer. They're really important, and they sustain you, and they hold up the mirror to you and who you are and who you want to be. So enjoy your time here, and remember to take the lessons that you hear, these big lessons that almost feel unattainable when you're hearing them. Make them into bite-sized things that you can actually implement every day, and try to be a better version of yourself every day with a greater purpose than your own personal well-being. Because when our time in this lifetime ends, it's not enough to have breathed the oxygen and taken up the space on the planet. As Sikhs, we are commanded to do more than that, and we absolutely can, and nothing short of that is going to create the world that we want to live in, the world that Guruji implores us to create for all of humanity. If you have any other questions or anything, I'm obviously around all week, but it's so great to be here with all of you. I get a lot of energy from it. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki
Thank you so much, Sapreet Kaurji. That's so inspirational to have a female role model who's done work, because sometimes you see these aunties like they're walking around, who are they? But really, can you imagine someone who's done work as a CEO of an organization almost, right? Or being a speaker at such a high level, and she is so eloquent in her speech, so well versed with talking about Sikhi. I do have my friend here. He is really my friend. He's like looking for me, like, where's Waheguru uncle? Waheguru man. I need a shirt that says Waheguru man. So it's just wonderful to see those role models. And you know, we look at these amazing souls here who have Sangat here, just like Sapreet Kaur said. They're going to grow into some amazing Gursikhs of the future. You know, all of the Gursikhs. Like I see, you know, Manak here and Guria here, and we used to go to camp together. When we first came, they were campers at Tuscarora, and now they're grown up with families. You guys are going to lead stuff in North America and across the globe, okay? Whether you're in Canada, you're from USA, or from wherever, you're going to lead stuff. You are part of this great Sangat that's going to create create leaders each day. Even that Jaitingan we do is all about leadership, right? Whether it is doing Rara Sahib or Chapai Sahib or Anand Sahib or whatever part you do, that's going to fill. This stuff is going to go into your being. It's going to change you. And you're going to love it. You're going to love Sikhi. As you grow up, you're going to love all the things that Guru Sahib has given us. And the limitless stuff in Gursikhi you can enjoy, whether it is Kirtan or Bani or Seva or working for, for others. It's amazing what you can see. With the same kind of thought process in mind of Miri and Piri, where we have people working in different spheres. Sapreet Kaurji has blessed us with her guidance. We have Jasmine Kaurji from Canada. And she's going to talk about not only her spiritual journey, but how she came from like 10 years ago. What was she doing? How did she come into Sikhi? Just as an inspiration to our Gursikhs here, that we're all on a different different space in this journey. And her journey has taken her to a place where she's now doing Seva and amazingly connecting with youth and parents across the globe and making change in terms of what she can do. We're all envious of of the Kirpa Vaiguruji has done on her, and that Vaiguruji speaks through her. And how is that happening? How is all this knowledge coming out? Even I am like enamored by the fact that she has such empowerment to do this. So without further ado, I'm going to call her up for about 10 minutes, and I'd love for Jasmine Kaurji to share her journey with us in her Sikh. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Can we welcome her with the Jakarta?
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. From the bottom of my heart, I have to thank you, Sapreet Kaur, because I know how important female representation is. So thank you for your seva.
I didn't notice a few of you were not paying attention when Sapreet Kaurji was talking. So especially you guys here, make sure you're looking at her. And those of you who can see eyes, please put your eyes. I'm a teacher, I gotta say eyes to eyes, right? Make sure you're looking at their eyes, because that's how the information transfers better. If you look somewhere else, you're gone. Okay? So please watch and listen carefully.
Okay, so with Manoj's grace, you guys are very lucky that you get to come to camps like this at a young age. I grew up in a very non-religious family. My family would consider themselves Sikh, but we went to the Gurdwara on Diwali, on Vaisakhi, and maybe one other day during the year. It wasn't anything very serious, and it wasn't really on the radar to pursue Sikhi in any way. So yeah, I lived a very non-religious life growing up, except my mom tells me that when I was really young, about 7, 8 years old, there was an auto sticker that says, A1 Auto Motor Shop or whatever, and they had a picture of Guru Nanak Dev Ji on it. And I asked my mom, who is it? And she said, oh, that's one of our gurus, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And she's like, yeah, but she didn't really know how to explain it more. And I took that picture to my room, and I took my little pencil case with coloring pencils in it, and I started drawing them. And a few nights my mom would come in and she said, why are you crying? And I would say, Mom, I really miss them. And she's thinking, like, how do you even know about who Guru Nanak Dev Ji is and what's happening? And I would tell her, Mom, today I cried 2 tissues worth of missing them. Oh, and then the next day I cried 3 tissues worth of missing them. And then 5 tissues of tears today about missing them. This is what my mom tells me. I don't remember this happening, but she tells me that this was how it was. Then I grew up a little bit, and I told my mom, I really want to start doing Japji Sahib. It came under the radar somehow, and she said, well, you don't really know how to read and write Punjabi. So she bought me a Japji Sahib, like a pothi that was written in like transliteration, in English transliteration. So I used to get up in the morning, no one else did in the family, and I used to write, so cat, so chi, na Hawaii. And that's how I read pretty much the entire Japji Sahib. Not really with any pronunciation. And then I would sit there and do Simran, and that was my thing for quite a while. I think I was from grade 4 to grade 6, somewhere in that vicinity. And then, nothing. Went back to school, played with the kids, you know, I cared about how I looked, we ate meat, I cut my hair, that kind of life. And that continued and continued until high school. High school, I think it was grade 11, when I started to feel a pitting feeling inside of me, a really, really pity, like I'm missing something feeling. All throughout my life, however, I was a stargazer. And as I started to grow older and older and I would look up at the stars, I would always think, why is the universe so big? Here I am with a really tiny little body, and I see only 4 people or 3 people around me, my family. I live in a house, and that's it. There's something more to what's going on here, and I used to look up at the stars, and I used to think that I'm missing something, there's pitting going on here. And I was searching and searching that I want to expand. I felt very stuck in my body in a sense. And one day my mom was cleaning the fridge. On top of the fridge there was a CD of Japji Sahib Katha. She had gotten it from participating in some radio talk show host thingy, so it just sat up there. And my dad's like, I don't think we're supposed to throw this away. Hey, why don't I listen to it? So as he started listening to the Katha, it would start infiltrating my ears as well, Japji Sahib Katha. And I started thinking that that pitting feeling that I'm having, that need to expand beyond what I am, something in Japji Sahib is answering that. And that kept happening, kept churning, until grade 12 came along, and I think it was prom, it was 3 days before prom, and I had made a firm decision that I'm done. It's time for me to now transition into Sikhi. My parents were shocked. They were like, is something going on? Is something wrong? And I told, my mom had come to the US to buy my prom dress. I had bought my prom ticket, and I told my mom, I'm not cutting my hair anymore. And I'm stopping eating all meats and everything. It's done, like I'm not doing it. And she's looking at me like, Jasmine, it's okay, like, are you okay? Is everything fine? And I said, everything is fine, but this is where I have to stop it. And I didn't have Gursikh friends, and I didn't have any Amritari Sangat society. I grew up in a very non-Sikh community. But that was the thing I decided through Katha and listening. I'm like, this is it. So my mom really forced me. She's like, please just go to prom. It's a big, do you guys know what prom is? You have prom here, right?
No, they don't.
They don't. Oh yeah, they don't yet. Oh, these guys are claiming they do. So I told, and my mom was like, please just go. It's a monumental thing in your life. And I used to actually organize some of the semi-formals in our school because I was on the organizing committees in high school. So the dancing, I used to stand with the DJ, you know, oh, this is the list coming in from that crowd. Can you play this? Can you do this? And I used to watch over, coat check, all of that stuff. And that time, I told my mom, this is my testing time. I'm not going into that hall and having myself tip, even a small risk of tipping. I'm going in the other way, that you have to stop forcing me or pressuring me to go. On the day of prom, she looks at me, she's like, Jasmine, please, the dress is ready, I dry cleaned it for you, just go, it's such a big deal. And I think that was when I really came into my being. And I said, no, I'm not going. And I had decided, you know, it had been a while since I'd keep my gaze, people were noticing at school that something is changing. But that was the first time that I had really said, that's the world, but I have my journey now. And as that churned and churned, my parents got influenced too. They're like, something is happening. So I was in grade 12. The summer of grade 12, transitioning into college, I was going to McMaster to do an honors in biochemistry. And we went to India that summer month, and I told my mom that when we get to Anandpur, I'm going to take Amrit there, because that's where Amrit was given originally, at Anandpur. And my parents said no. Not in a bad sense, they're like, you don't know how to read and write Gurbani? You've just started keeping your gaze, you've just stopped eating meat, you've just, all of this stuff, like you don't even, it's such a big lifelong commitment. It's not, Jasmine, I hope this isn't just some kind of trend that you're going through. This is a lifelong thing. And I said, but I want to do it. And they said, Jasmine, okay, why don't we do this? Practice Nitnem and living in that Rahat for a year, and then you can take Amrit. We just don't want you to take Amrit and then leave it. So I said, okay, fine, that's a good deal, I'll try to do it. Went to university, didn't learn Gurmukhi because you get very into university life, or college life. And what I used to do was, there were 10 minutes between class transitions. I used to be from one class to the other, you'd have 10 minutes. And I would go to my campus housing, and I would say, I'm going to cut off 10 minutes from this class, and I'm going to cut off 10 minutes from this class. I'm going back, and I need to listen to the katha. I was so into just drinking Japji Sahib arts, drinking Sukhmani Sahib. I needed it. More than food, I needed the Bani. But I needed it with art. And I used to sit there and bask, and that's what I wanted all day, every day. And I went through all of Sukhmani Sahib, all of Japji Sahib, and a few other Itihasik and all these kathas. And 1 year passed by, 2 years passed by, and I didn't take Amrit yet. And I was questioning myself. You didn't change a single thing. You didn't start doing Nitnem in the morning. You didn't learn how to read and write. This is it. This is enough. This is all just a massive excuse. And I met this girl on the bus going home one day. So from my university, I used to live there during the week, and then I went home on the weekend. And she was wearing a dastard, and I went up to her and like, how do you do this entire thing? Like, I wanna do it too. But I'm really scared because I don't have rehat. And that's something that a lot of people are scared of. And she looked at me and she said, rehat is not so that we can keep it. Rehat is so that rehat can keep us. And that really hit me, and I thought, that makes sense. Who am I to think I could keep rehat? Rehat is supposed to keep me. So the beginning of that year, the second year transitioning into the third year came. And at the beginning of the year, we always did a Vaisakhi Ardas. My parents started putting me in charge of the Ardas in our house. And I used to look it off of an English transliteration sheet and just do it. And I said to Maharaj that I've heard that you can change karma in the kathas I've been listening to. That if it's not written that I can have Amrit, please write it down. Because you have that capacity. At that Vaisakhi, the Amrit Sanchar came, and I went to the Gurdwara, I asked them, what do I need to do this? They gave me all this stuff, and come tomorrow, and I did it. So at that Amrit Sanchar, they told me you have to wear the star, make sure you can open it so that they can put Amrit here and so forth. Nobody in my family knew how to do that for me. So there I was in the morning, panicking, how do I tie this thing? So my dad comes in and he just fidgets with a bunch of cloth, makes it happen. What's really funny is, I cover it with a junni to make it look somewhat decent. And I come to my Amrit Sanchar ceremony, and there's a guard, it's called a Beredar. And he looks at me, he's like, wow, you look amazing, sends me in. And there's a whole bunch of old people, Bibiyan is what he called it, sitting there with Junniya. And he looks at me, he's like, look at this girl wearing a dastard. Bibi, he gives me a whole bunch of sarope, and he's like, go tie it on everyone else. And I just stare at him I don't know how to tie on the star. So they all start following me into the washroom and asking me all of these intricacies of the star tying. And I just keep saying, yeah, that's how it is, yeah. And that was it. So I guess I've been doing Bachar right from the get-go. But I'm sitting in that Amrit ceremony and I'm thinking, I need to leave. Because everybody in that Amrit ceremony was with their parents, it was little kids. These were people that were already so adept at Sikhi. They already knew how to read and write. They already knew they were in that sort of mahal. And I thought, you need to leave. You can't do this. But I kept sitting and I kept sitting and I kept sitting, and the moment came when they gave me Amrit. And I realized for the first day what Maya was that day. That entire push to not do it went right down the drain as soon as I took that Amrit. Because at that point I knew that now, whether I'm not even biologically, even if I don't biologically have my mom and dad anymore, which I would never wish, I'm like, now I have a father and I have a mother, a spiritual mother and a father that are always going to look out for me. And I went into the divan that day and I did ardas to Guru Nanak Dev Ji that day. And I said, Maharaj, I don't know any Amritdhari people and I have no idea what I'm actually supposed to be doing. So can you personally be in charge of making sure I do everything right and that I'm progressing spiritually? Because I really did want mukti. I really do want enlightenment. That was the reason I came in. And I tell you, it's the best ardas I've done because Guru Nanak Dev Ji has come through every moment of my life. Within the next day, someone came to my house and taught me how to tie this thought properly. By the way, I don't want you to think that you have to tie this thought. Junis and patkas are fine. The covering of the head is important. That was just what people did around me, so I wasn't questioning things. I was like, how do I take Amrit? How do I do this? And that's what people told me, so I did it. So, girl came in, taught me how to tie the thought. I've been tying it the same way since. Learned it. 2 weeks later, a new group of 6 got together from different universities and started an organization in Toronto. Somehow I was a part of that meeting, immediately got completely new Sangat. A couple months later, I got entry into a Kirtan class that you don't really get entry into. If you guys know Bibi Guneet Kaur from Toronto, she does Kirtan and Rag. She's like, I'll take you on and I'll teach you. A couple months later, a Santya Ustad came to us and said, I want to teach this group of youth how to read Gurbani, and I was very happy about it. Except the problem was I didn't know how to read yet. I was just listening to my Nityanem and trying to follow along transliterations. So I thought, okay, no problem. Here's a tip for wanting to get something in life. Whenever you want to be good at something, put your ego on the line. I'll tell you how. So I went to this Santya class, and they start off with Nityanem, which I had somewhat memorized at this point. So I wasn't really reading it, I was just going off my memory, and I was doing fine. But then my Santya Ustad comes in one day after Nityanem is done, and he's like, the Ladivar Sanchiya have arrived, we'll start Ladivar Santya next week. Ladivar, if you read Guru Granth Sahib Ji, that sarup that doesn't have spaces in between the words where all of the lines are connected, that's called a Ladivar sarup. And that's originally how Guru Granth Sahib Ji was written during the Guru's times. And they had gotten these Sanchiya. And I am panicking because all in my group, meri to besti ho rani hai. It's gonna be complete besti. Do you guys understand what besti is? Right? Yeah, my ego was on the line here. And I thought, darn it, how am I gonna handle this? So it happens that I used to go home and I used to read. It took me hours and hours to go through just one ang. And going through one ang in Santya happens quickly. So then the next ang, hours and hours I'm doing it. Why? Because I don't want to have my besti done in class. Come class time, I'm doing ardas to Maharaj, please teach me how to read, I don't know how to do this. Within 1 to 2 months, I'm reading it just like English. How is this happening? Guru Nanak Dev Ji is making this happen. So the reason I'm telling you, if you ever feel like, oh, I'm not at that level or I'm not there yet, don't. Put that in the garbage. You can always develop it and your Guru will come and help you develop it. So things go on. The youth group, they get in charge of a Gurdwara. And this Gurdwara needs a Pracharak, someone who can speak in English and describe the meanings of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And they had sent us, someone had come from England to teach us Katha, And they just kind of been like, Jasmine, come to the class. And I thought, I don't want to come to class, but you know, I want to know what the knowledge he has. So he would basically say, every single day you're going to do 5 minutes of katha, then 10 minutes, 20, whatever. And I sucked. I was absolutely terrible. I stuttered. I didn't know my thought process. Nothing was combining, and I thought, I can't do katha. I love katha, but I'm not doing it. And then the ardas comes that day of starting the youth gurdwara. And they do ardas that Jasmine Kaur will be doing Sukhmani Sahib Ji di katha every Friday from 6 to 7 or 7 to 8, something like that. And I'm just like, what? You chose such a long bani that is going to take so long to finish, and I have to do katha of it? They're like, Jasmine, Sukhmani Sahib is easy. Like, it's the easy bani. And I'm just like, no. And they're like, we already did ardas, so you have to come next Friday. So there I am, panicking. I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing prachar? Because I haven't been to any school where you're supposed to properly learn the vidya of anything. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyways, that katha starts going online, people start contacting me, and all this stuff starts to happen, and I'm still backing away. People are calling me for prachar, and I'm saying, no, I'm sorry, I'm in school, I don't want to do this. Happens, and then 2 years ago from today, so I took Amrit 6 years ago today. 2 years ago today, I said I'm backing. I'm not doing prachar anymore, I'm done. Because that pit had come back again. That really, really deep pit. And I thought, I've taken Amrit, I've done everything, but the pit is still there. And it's a dark pit. And I backed off, I'm like, I'm not doing prachar anymore, bye. And I went, I think there was one camp that I did in Chicago 2 years ago. I came back from that camp and I said, okay, after this camp, like, no more. I came back from that camp one morning. This was my, someone asked me my 180-degree turn, if you would say. I came home and I sat down for Simran on my bed, and it was the darkest feeling I had ever felt. I closed my eyes and it was dark, and I know that when you close your eyes it's dark. But this was a more fundamental, very like inner urge type of feeling that it's dark. And I started crying thinking, I don't know anything. And it's dark, and now I'm hyperventilating because this thing is growing. And I'm crying, I'm on the floor trying to like fix myself, no one's home. And I'm hyperventilating, panicking, and I'm telling myself, Jasmine, go to Babaji's room. This is what the Guru does, takes you out of the darkness to the light. And I'm thinking, just go there, because I'm shaking, my entire body is gone. I go to Babaji's room and I say, just start with Moon Mantra, because that's where Gurbani starts. And I say, Ik, and I panic more. I say, Omkar, and the pit grows more. I say Satnam, and the panic is getting worse and worse. Why? Because when I say Ik, I don't see Ik. When I say Omkar, I'm saying, what does that even mean? Yes, as a pracharak, I can give you Ik Advaita Swarup, Jo Sabda Prakashik hai, but I memorized it. From this tika, or that tika, or from that person and that person. What is Omkar? It didn't happen to me yet. Satnam, what is it? It didn't happen to me yet. And this pit is like really deeply there now. And I'm crying more and I'm thinking, what do I do now? I've done Mool Mantra a few times, but nothing has changed. I've gotten even deeper into this ignorance. So I do Ardas. And I think when I did Ardas today to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, I said, you have to come yourself. I'm done with this Jathebandi. I'm done with this Jathebandi. I'm done with what this person keeps saying the arth is. I'm done with what this person keeps saying the arth is. I want to see it. I want Gurbani to happen to me. Because if it doesn't, and I die, it's been all just a story. And I'm saying all this, and I'm like, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, please come. I'm not thinking about the probability of whether Guru Nanak can come or not. It is just, please, you have to come. I want to know the arth directly from you. And not just the arth, I want to see what you're seeing. And then something starts ringing in my head, really hard, just naturally starts to ring. And that pankti that starts to ring is Antarjami, Purakh Bidhate, Sarda Man Ki Pure, Nanak Das eh Sukh Mangay, Moga Kar Santan Ki Ture. Don't know what a saint is. I've heard about them, but it's not really like a practical thing for me. And no one around me talks about it. But it's starting to ring. It's like from here, it's ringing, it's ringing. And then the rest of that body is ringing. Raag Gaudi Purvi Mahla Panjwa, Karo Binanti Sunho Mere Mita, Sant Tehal Ki Bela, Sant Tehal Ki Bela, Sant Tehal Ki Bela. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to look for? And I said, Maharaj, if you're doing in a shara that I have to go to a saint, then it has to be someone who's enlightened. It has to be you, yourself. And it rings, and it rings, and it rings, and it rings. And I finish my ardas, go to my room, do some breathing, and I calm myself down, but the pit's still there. And up until now, every single major pracharak that had come to Toronto was almost exclusively surrounded by saints. So the environment in Canada maybe is that when someone comes and they have vidya or something, they're always surrounded by saints. And all of the girls were just kind of on the periphery saying, you know, I wish I could talk to them, sounds like they're having a good conversation. And across the board, a lot of these pracharaks, they don't really teach women. So they do classes where they read Brahm Vidya. Brahm Vidya is that study that starts to unlock the spiritual arts of Gurbani. Brahm Vidya, Sach Updesh. And almost exclusively these classes are composed of just things. So they started, a new Mahapurkh had come. Gyani Sukha Singh was the one that introduced them. And the group of people that we were with, they set up Brahm Vidya classes with them. Their name was Swami Ram Singh Ji or Baba Ram Singh Ji. And I thought, you know, it's been a week, the pit's still there. I'm losing faith in even having Amrit. Because for me, I want mukti. It's not about how I do it, it needs to happen to me. I go to that class, and they look at me and say, Jasmine, I've been waiting for you for a long time. It's about time you came. And I thought, what are they talking about? But I sit down, and the class starts, and they say, put the Granth aside. We're going to start with the Arth of Mool Mantra today. And they start breaking down how Atma actually is on the inside. And that pit, it starts to leave. This entire purge of darkness goes. And I feel this absolute intoxication and bliss overcoming me, that bodilessness that I was talking about in the class that we do in the morning, it was happening. And I was crying and just drinking what they were saying. And I came back every time I said, you have to teach me Brahm Vidya. Do you know that it's only in their class that the very first 2 rows are just women? They make the Singhs sit at the back. And they said to me, for millennia, not just our Sikh faith, but for millennia, women have been pushed to the back. It's time to bring them to the front. Because the capacity to do bhakti in a woman is so powerful. And that has just been laid down in seed and just to the side. Almost exclusively the institutions in Punjab that were set up, and we'll talk about this today in our discussion, were just for men. Women had to rely on their husband to get that vidya, and then they would get it. And so, Swami Ram Singh Ji, I'm feeling something here, and then a whole slew of very personal things start to happen, where interventions by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Guru Gobind Singh Ji happen, because I'm doubting that I have to go to a saint. No one talks about this. I don't see any woman in the world that I have seen that travels with the saint. I've seen Singhs do it, but I don't know, I have no one to look up to. I'm really doubting this. The things they're talking about are so spiritual, you don't hear these on stages. And I'm thinking, what, am I supposed to do this? And a whole slew of interventions happen from our Ishq's part. And finally, I'm aligned. And now I'm learning from them. And things, I sit there in class because they're teaching extremely difficult concepts. And I'm sitting there thinking, how am I understanding this? There was one time I forgot to say, sometimes the Sangat around you is so a little bit passive-aggressive. You ask them a woman-related question, and it pacifies you for a little bit, but it really is just re-establishing that you're the second gender. And I went to Guru Maharaj one day and I said, I admit it, and I accept it fully that I'm the second gender. But you know what? You've given mukti to ants, then you can give me mukti as well. And it didn't go well with Maharaj at all. Because just within a few days, I was sitting on a stage doing katha in an almost exclusive environment that was just for Singhs. In a few days, I was teaching Vidya to a group of Singhs. That had not happened before. Forget about teaching Vidya, women didn't even learn it. So everything that's been happening in my life, like I said yesterday, 2 people have cheered me on, really, as a woman. One has been the Guru, and one has been Swamiji. Swamiji says, I don't mind taking you on, I don't have a problem. He's like, I've done what I needed to do with my life. And their story is, they started meditating at 5 and they left their house, spent time in the mountains, and they did a lot of dehel, no money, nothing. Oh, their story is something else. But now I travel with Swamiji wherever I can. And we face a lot of backlash because you don't see here, you guys, what I love about you guys is there is a pro-equality type of movement here. But I'll tell you, around the world, not the case. Not the case at all. So this is a big, I don't want to say you're living in a bubble, but you're very lucky because it's not the case, and I faced it from other women. So I've traveled with them. One time someone comes up to Swamiji and says, stop teaching her. She's a woman. And Swamiji says, why? It's like, women weren't taught, if she sits on a stage, men are going to get vigari. Men are going to look at her and want to make her their wife. And Swamiji puts the book aside and says, if you can't see her as anything other than your wife, then that's your problem. That's not her problem. That's not her problem. That's your problem. And they said that for millennia, men have been sitting on the stages. I didn't see any girl say that I want to make him my husband. They respect the prachariks on the stage as prachariks. So can you not respect her on the stage as a pracharak? And he was quiet, and he's like, you know, but still, whatever the things they have to say. And Swamiji's like, this is a deep-rooted problem. It's coming from your cores. And another time, I was in Fresno, California. And so wherever they travel to different gurudwaras, wherever they can find maybe a room, they call me and say, okay, now I can teach you here, come. Because I can't travel with them uddai. People are going to really question that one. So when they find a room for me, they're like, okay, come here, I can teach you here. So I went there, and I'm shy because the Singhs automatically surround them. They have to say, Jasmine, come sit with me. Move over. How do I sit here? They're the ones that say, Jasmine, over here. Where's Jasmine? Always looking out because I'm always kind of like at the back, just letting things happen. One time they're like, come, we're going to go for a walk. And I see people's eyes on us. Auntia's eyes, women's eyes. Thinking like, what is that girl doing with that son? And why is she always around him? They don't question it when Singhs do it, but they question it when we do it. And I told Swamiji, I'm really uncomfortable with this. I don't like that they're thinking strange things, that they're thinking this or whatever. And he stands there and says, you keep calling yourself Khalsa, and it's supposed to mean fearless. He's like, you think they're looking at you. You don't think they're looking at me and saying, what is that Sant doing with the bibi? Or with the girl? He's like, I'm willing to take on the stones, because whether someone throws stones at me or gives me vadai is the same. I've gotten what I need to, but you haven't. So if you want to do this, and if you want a change to come in the Panth, someone's going to have to take the stones. Someone's going to have to be at the front line and take the brunt of the hits. Because here you think pro-equality, almost the rest of the world does not think this way. And if they say they think it, it's not in their head. They're like, you want to change? Because the Guru has been pushing you. Every time you avoid prachar, you go back into it. The Guru has done so many things, interventions that you know of. If you want a transformation in the Panth for the girls, you're going to have to take the brunt of the hit. And he's like, are you up for the challenge? He's like, I will support you all the way through, but you have to be ready. And I thought, someone's got to do it. Someone has to stand in there and do it. And that has been my seva from the Guru's part for so long. Go out there and put representation. And honestly, I have not really tried to say, call me to this camp, call me to this camp. Up until now, Guru Maharaj, it's been people that have been calling me. Come to this camp, we need your seva here, we need your seva here. And I sometimes am the one that said, please, like, I don't think I'm ready for this, I'm not ready. But I'm telling you, because you tell me what I've done, zero. You ask me my input into this, it's been zero. It's been Maharaj that's been pushing me. Like that thing? So, I go around and I learn from them. Some of these granths are written in Hindi and high Sanskrit. I don't know how I do it, but that's been my seva. Yeah, I'm interrupted. Sorry guys, I talk too much of you. But that's been my seva. After that, things happened and I said if I'm going to go out for the Panth, I quit school, and this is what I do full time. More than prachar, it's my own sadhana that I work on to get to someplace. Anyways, that's my story. If you have any questions, I'm here until tomorrow afternoon. But yeah, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
I really didn't want to be the person to say we need to wrap up for dinner, but we do have to go for dinner. The story is incredible. It is going to shake people to the core, because anytime a Kaur has taken on a duty, as did when Guru Amar Das Ji said, women will not do sati, they will not burn the fire. The entire world, like, how can you say the women can't burn the fire? It's a religious thing. They should sit on their husbands, the widow should sit on their husband's, dead husband's fire and die on the fire. And Guru Sahib said, no one should be sati. Guru Sahib made 3 women missionaries. Guru Amar Das made 3 women missionaries when no women used to go on to prachar. 500 years ago, that was crazy. Even now in US and Canada, women don't have rights, like Guru Kumarji wanted rights. And so this is incredible what Guru Sahib did, but we see that change happening now. What Jasmine Kaur has said, or what some of our teachers who are trying to bring women forward have done, incredible. Even we feel uncomfortable with these stories. Well, he will be a prachar like Harman Singh came. He literally has, like, he's a lawyer, he's by trade, all that stuff. He's left that to do prachar for basic Sikhi. And I remember Pagiji said to him, because Pagiji can see the future, he says to him when he was 13, he says, prachar da rana bada aukha hai, dekh leo. And he says, Pagiji, and the app, he knew of Harman Singh who comes to do seva here, he's going to be a pracharak in his life. And Harman Singh's taken this on. He said at camp last year, he said, every one of you has to be a pracharak. Everyone has to be a beacon of light for Gursikhi. It's not that whether you're a householder, whether you're working like Sapreet or whether you're working like any one of you, you are a pracharak. I'm a teacher. Yeah, I do prachar of Sikhi in my classes, not for saying that this is Sikhi, but we as Sikhs believe in compassion. We believe in kindness. And I tell my students about the Sikh values that way, because those are values that we practice in the world. So these are the graces that we have. I want you all to take that in. I'm sure you have lots of questions for Jasmine Kaur and for Sapreet Kaurji. We'll hold them for after dinner. Let them have dinner. peacefully, and then we can have questions later. We're going to dismiss groups by, is there any special people here? Special and aid, Mathadik, and lovingly exit the hall. Get group B to Mathadik lovingly and exit the one hall. Group C.